Welcome to the Living Out Loud show with Michelle Wadleigh and Alan Vukas. In each episode, we will explore practical spirituality through inspiring and enlightening conversations. Be a part of our weekly conversation with a rotating cast of speakers, teachers, and authors as we uncover and share spiritual, mental, and emotional tools to help you live your authentic life out loud now. Oh, welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Living Out Loud show. And I'm Alan Vukas.
And I'm Michelle Wadleigh, and we are here with another episode of the Living Out Loud show. We are so glad that you join us each and every week to peel away another layer of this incredible theme and these global themes that we're working on this year through the Centers for Spiritual Living. I am certain you have benefited through all these conversations. And I know because we've benefited and we're the one doing the work. So good morning. Good morning,
Yeah.
Alan.
Yeah, well, good morning, Michelle. So good to see. Or good afternoon. It's afternoon here on the East Coast. For those of you who don't know us, Michelle and I are both on the East Coast. I'm in Rhode Island, and
I'm in New Jersey.
And I serve at the Center for Spiritual Living in Rhode Island, Concordia Center for Spiritual Living. And where are you serving at?
As a spiritual leader, I am at the Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, but I'm also the director of the Planned Happiness Institute. So I have two different nonprofits that I'm serving at this time. But it's all good work for good people, good reasons. It's all to help make the world a better place. So, it's all the same thing.
Yeah. And so for those of you who are joining us today and each week, Michelle and I come together to have these conversations around these themes each month to support ourselves and you and all of us together in living authentically out loud. And this month, we've been talking about the light within the shadows, which this has been a powerful.
Yeah, that's true.
What did we talk about last week? Last week, I'm just referring back to
last week was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And I think if I remember correctly, the point of that was to value the dark because it's in the dark that we get to see the stars or the gems or the aspects of light within ourselves. But without that contrast, without having the dark as contrast, there's certain things that we might not be able to see and recognize. So Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star was a great conversation about that. And we've been offering all month, actually, which is what I love about this show. We are not theoretical. We are here to offer pragmatic, applicable tidbits of information and practices so you can take the conversation and make it mean something. And I think that, that's the thing I love best about what we do here on this show.
That's great, Michelle, because that, me, that's sort of where if it's not practical, then, I've got way too much theory in my head. I don't know if I've got much more room in there. So it's got to be practical and I need to be able to apply it in my life. And, and Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, which these teachings are based on, this spirit of mind, science of mind and spirit. He said, you have to prove it for yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
You prove it, and otherwise, until you prove it and demonstrate it for yourself, then it really is just theory. So enough talking about it and just do it already. And
I am reapproaching a book that I've listened to years ago. It's one of my husband's favorites, and I didn't like it initially. It was even too woo-woo for me. Now that's saying something. But I've decided to reread it, and because of exactly what you just said, and it's busting loose of the money game. I don't remember.
Yeah. What's his name again?
Schoenfeld or something like that. And he's doing a book study right now with about 11 people in it on Monday nights. And so they're unpacking it. But the reason why I brought it up is because I am always pragmatic, but I want to take what that is teaching. And I want to get to the point where I can say I proved it. I proved it out. I don't want to just sit back and read it to read it. And although I approach most of science of mind that way, and the way I used to say it, if you think it is not working, realize that the I in the it is you. Like me not working. So with the to tie that together with the shadow work, as we embrace the shadow, and every time we embrace the shadow and we heal a part, more spirit becomes available to us because we become more available to it. See, that's the beauty of this, right? That we're not just healing for healing's sake. We're not just looking at the shadow so we can, check off for our emotional health list of that. We did that. We do this because every time we engage and integrate another aspect of our shadow, we have greater access to spirit. Spirit has a greater access to us. That's why we're doing this, folks, so that through every conversation and through every application of what we're doing, there's an increase, and we're constantly graduating and graduating to feeling more empowered and more self-realized. So
yeah, that reminds me of a quote that I've been using that throughout this month from Rumi. And I'm going blank here, but I'm going to paraphrase it.
okay.
I don't speak like Rumi, but Rumi, as far as that we don't have to create love, but it's up to us to remove the barriers, our barriers and the blocks to love.
Right.
That love is here, the light is here, and the shadows of those areas of our life that maybe we have kept repressed or kept denied or have turned a blind eye to, for the pain that they bring in the stories that are told around these parts. And by bringing our awareness to those areas, then what we're actually doing is making ourselves aware of the light that's there. And so last week we gave some practical, but areas, dark skies, so shadows for ourselves. Notice if you're having strong feelings about a topic. You get triggered. Many of us know what that word is. We may not be able to define it, but we know when we're triggered. When you feel someone's pushed a button, when it feels like a button has been pushed, and you may not identify it as a button, but something got pushed, and you're going to push right back. That could indicate shadows or patterns of when we're going round and round, self-sabotage. Or even dreams. I've been having some recurring dreams lately, themes that have been showing up, which I'll have to talk to you off camera because I don't know if you.
Okay. I look forward to hearing it.
So this week, episode 16 is where we're talking about taking center stage in our life. We're just sort of wanting to bring it all home and just put a nice little bow on this. Lights, camera, action. We're here to take center stage of our own lives.
Yeah, to take center stage, to be self-empowered, to feel the full potency of your divine birthright. This is your divine birthright. You deserve to walk the streets of wherever you live with your head held high, without worrying about what people think about you, and without even you worrying about what you think about you. We each deserve to live a life that flows with ease and grace. And this is part of the journey about how we get there. It is.
I loved it because what came up as soon as you said that, walking the streets, even the streets of our own mind, right? Walking even the streets of our own mind safely, right? So, and the unexplored shadows, we may not, those are the areas of our mind where we don't feel safe to walk. And not bringing our awareness or attention to them, then we're cut off from that part. We're cut off from that
Mhm.
part. So taking center stage, it is those avoiding those parts can keep us from getting into the spotlight.
Right, right.
So that's why this is why it's so important. We're born for this. I was taking some notes this morning, Michelle, and I know you were mentioning that a book was too woo for you, and it's just I think I'm a little more. I'm a little left of that woo, I think. I pulled a card this morning, you know me, and I pull cards. And so I pulled this card, and the message that came up for me this morning, and so I just want to share that is that we were born for this.
Mm.
The life that we're living right here, right now. There is something in us that is longing to be expressed, and we are the only ones that can let it out. And waiting for permission from someone else is that's life put us here, and it's waiting
Yep,
for us. So
yep,
us to
yep,
step on stage.
yeah.
So there was something has been brought.
Yeah,
We had
I want
discussed, and you wanted to
yep,
bring forward today.
I want to tie together something, and bear with me because I realize that if you don't hear the whole thing, you could potentially be mishearing it to take blame or responsibility. So I'm telling you up front, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But there are certain aspects, and I don't know about the rest of our listeners, but I definitely I have lists of things that I've done in my life that I wish I hadn't. I have lists of regrets. Now, I've worked on most of it. I have practiced forgiveness ad nauseum and have healed most of it. But there are certain still little places where because I have my own opinions about my sins, and in science mind or in New Thought, sins means missing the mark. It just means we made the mistake. I have enough of my own mistakes that I have it's from embarrassment about up to shame, the gamut. And so what happens is, and as the listener, you might be, paying attention now and asking yourself this question: what is it that you want to hide so much that you pull back from? Because what I started to realize the other day in my community, we wanted to talk about the epidemic of loneliness. And you and I have dabbled about this conversation. We've dabbled a little bit. But here's what I want you to consider: that if you're not willing to be vulnerable and to look at the shadow, but instead hide the shadow and hide behind the shadow, what could be the end result for many of us is our self-imposed loneliness, merely because I don't want you to see my warts.
Mm,
I
mm,
don't want you to see my warts and my faults. And so I pull back, and I don't, there's part of me, there's a measure of me where I won't engage. Now, in all honesty, I have very little of that left. So I do engage, and I want to engage. But there are a lot of people walking around out there where this conversation is new for you. And you might be wondering, why am I so lonely, without realizing, oh, sometimes my loneliness is a place of safety.
right.
Now, not in reality, but self-imposed, because then you won't judge me. Maybe you'll like me because you won't see my warts and my faults. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would just say another word that you could use, because loneliness might be the experience of, but is isolation.
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes, yes, yes. Mhm.
We isolate. We pull back.
Yeah.
We may say things like, well, I didn't need their approval anyway. I didn't. We may we may say things that
Mhm.
just that we rationalize to ourselves.
Yes.
We rationalize why we're withdrawing, why we're pulling back, why we're not going down that which we might have been excited about. Um,
Right.
and recovery work, in 12-step recovery programs, I've done a little 12-step stuff. I mean, isolation is a symptom.
Okay. Okay. That makes
Isolation is
sense.
actually a symptom because we then begin to isolate. We then get into our heads, and
Mhm.
um, and then we experience then this loneliness, which becomes painful,
Mm.
and it can be self-imposed. This is why spiritual community is an important spiritual practice. Being intentional, reaching out, connecting, because we have a desire that is so hardwired into us to belong, to be
Mm.
seen. And when we isolate, go ahead.
I just want to say, to emphasize what you just said. It is hardwired, and it's been scientifically proven. I mean, it was during a certain time in our life. It was survival, but now it's survival of your own spirit, of your own life force. And
Right.
I think spiritual community is the best, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a bowling club where you feel safe, though. If you can feel safe and be you, it's valuable. That's the difference. You have to be willing to be you, to be around people that see you. I mean, as a minister, of course, I don't pretend to be what I'm not when I'm around my congregation, but there's still a layer of me that has to behave nice. There's certain behaviors, but then when I realize, when I pull back and I'm around those who look at me and they go, "Yep, she's just being Michelle." That's that's where I want to be.
Mm,
I want to be with people that aren't shocked by me, not surprised by me, and if anything, maybe they're amused by me. But and so when you get to that place, folks, that's a sign that that you've accepted who you are, and you've accepted those shadow aspects. For every piece you heal, you get to let somebody fall in love with you, another aspect of you, And
mm,
it's like, 'cause you and I, Reverend Alan and I, we have had probably thousands of hours of conversations in the time that we've been friends, and some of the more precious have been raw times. My breakdown or your breakdown where you felt safe,
mm.
where I felt safe, and you have to cultivate those relationships, and you don't get to have that relationship without being willing to be seen. Right?
Right.
You have to be willing to have all the warts and the faults be seen. And there in that moment, folks, there in that place, that precious place that we've been talking about all month, you get to have freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom to find joy, right? So I guess I'm taking us too far in this, but
No,
yeah.
I think this is the practical is to notice if there's areas of our life in which we're withholding, from ourselves, by withdrawing, by isolating, and imposing on ourselves. We're waiting for someone to maybe come rescue us, or to tell us it's going to be all right, when maybe all we need to do is pick up the phone and call someone and
Yeah.
said, "Hey, can are you available? Are you available to listen? I need someone to listen to me." Or, "How are you? I really need to connect with someone. I'm I mean, and that takes vulnerability. It
Yep.
takes
Yep.
But it's a commitment to our own journey, right? Getting out there on center stage, being authentic and real is
Yeah. Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about it, but it takes work.
Yes.
It takes
It's this morning, I went before I met with you today, I went to my grandson's first grade performance at school. I
Oh.
cried for most of it. I just cried. The name of it was The Principal and the Pea, and all the music. I guess it must be a play that schools do all the time. And the music was precious. And he was there, but all the children,
Mm.
I can tell this is before they got what do you call it, self-conscious. They were
Mm.
just there, pure, waving their arms, making mistakes, singing out loud with all, arms waving. Just cried, and I'm telling you, I cried through most of it because it reminded of me a time of the purity of being when I didn't have to cover up or explain.
Right.
And I thought to myself, while I'm watching the show, because it's me and my mind's like this, I thought to myself, wow, I wonder how long he gets to hold on to that.
Mm.
Like, there is a point in school where suddenly the kids come from that free expression to where they start to shut down.
Right.
And what, where is that? And what can I do to help him to continue to say, I'm here, and not hide?
Mm.
It was precious, and it was a little raw, and I felt joy, and I felt just the awareness of how we get to being an adult, and we often leave that joy behind. We
Mm.
leave it
That's
behind.
Yeah, except as we become little children, that's when we get to inhabit the kingdom of heaven that Jesus referred to. I mean, as far as that sense of wonder and amazement and awe when we set aside our domestication, Don Miguel Ruiz, when we set aside and let our light shine and step out there onto that stage. And um yeah, that's thank you for that. That is when at what point, and I mean, I can look back over my life and I can see where the conditioning began to take place. And
I I have a memory. I was in second grade. This is how I don't remember many things particularly, but I was in second grade. I was an okay student. I was never a great student. And I couldn't see something on the blackboard. So I stood up and I was backing away from my chair to get out from behind the heads. I was sitting in the back. And when I backed up, I didn't realize I backed up into a radiator.
mm,
Um, some of you all might not know what a radiator is, but it's a cast iron apparatus used to bring heat into a room. And I burnt my leg. Like I
mm,
accidentally touched it, and I gasped. And the teacher looked at me. Now I hurt myself. What was there to judge? But I can remember being completely self-conscious that I caused her and the students to turn around and look at me. Like something that simple. And our children and our grandchildren, they adopt these eventually, unfortunately, they adopt these self-imposed judgments, because they don't really know how to handle it. They don't know what to do. So, and that's again part of the starting to hide from ourselves. Instead of just looking at the teacher and go, whoops, whoops, sorry, and then sit down, it became a thing. Now
yes.
that was me. You might not have had that thing. So for each of us, for you listening, we each respond differently because we carry in to every situation a different aspect of who we are. So there's no one way that we develop our shadow, and there's no one way to heal from it,
Right.
except for being willing to shine your light. You have to be
Mm.
willing to shine your light.
Yeah, so I mean, and for each of us, like you mentioned, it is just as our experiences that shaped us are different, our interests are different, our all of that's we're unique. And so
Mhm.
we'll have our own path on the center stage. It's just as we had our path that prepared us, our unique paths that have
Mhm.
prepared us to play the role that only we can play.
Right.
To play that, so when the sorry about that. So I guess let's talk about a little the areas. So some of the things that have prepared us, it could have been being embarrassed or whatever that would being the spotlight on you as you are getting burned by the radiator and upsetting the class. That could be, but our own. If there's been a time where we have failed or we have been rejected,
Mhm.
experiences in our life, past experiences, those might have echoes and might be reverbing within us, calling to us to
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
can they support us into moving. There might be some stuff that is some greater awareness that's wanting to be known. It's only a failure when you don't get up, if you don't
Right.
get back
Right,
up, right?
right, right. Mhm. Mhm.
So discovering your resilience that you have, because you did get up. You wouldn't be where you're at today if you didn't get through yesterday.
Well,
You
it's
made
funny. For those of you that have a stubborn nature, that stubbornness can be seen as a negative shadow, but it is the driving force that keeps you getting up. It's the driving force that makes you try again. It's the driving force that allows you to try even when others look at you and say, "Are you out of your mind?" So even aspects like being stubborn have a value that unless we look at it, we might not think it has a value. We could just say, "Oh, you're so stubborn." Yeah, but I'm stubborn on my own behalf, and I'm stubborn because I believe in you. And that suddenly the stubbornness starts to have value.
Mm. That's and what you had mentioned, some of our conditioning, it wasn't just in our own classrooms, but there's also the societal, aspects as well. We have been shaped and there have been expectations put on us that may have caused us to feel like we're being held back. That we're being held back and um but examining those areas where we have been shrinking back up till now,
Mhm, mhm.
unexamined, there are gifts. I mean, I realized that one of my oh, this is going to be, I hope Kevin doesn't watch this. Um
If you
if
don't
you're
know,
Kevin's my partner, if you don't know.
yeah.
And so I grew up in a household that my father was um he was very demanding. He was very demanding, very hands-on in many ways, and some not so good ways. And um, but he was also he was a commercial fisherman. He was a shrimper, and he many he. I grew up around the boats, and so there was on a boat. There's always some type of work to do, or something mechanical that needs fixing, or breaking down, or it's just a process. It's just part of the life. And so my father would work on things many times. And with his two sons, my brother and myself, he would bring us over to help him. And so we learned, those were some, as I was young, those were some, I mean, at first, not so much, but as time went on, they got a little more stressful because his expectations began to rise of us anticipating what he was going to ask for next. So my partner, so I'll give you how Kevin comes with this. So
I'd like to
Kevin,
know.
yeah, so I'll tell you here. So I was our little dog, one of our furry family members here, Luna, had a little sore on her face. She has face folds, and I asked
Oh,
Kevin to hold the flashlight in such a way so that I could see the
mhm.
little spot on her face, and I couldn't hold the light and hold her, this squirming little French bulldog, at the same time. And so he's holding the light every which direction except for the place that I'm looking. Now, and I'm like, are
I'm
you
sorry for
shining the
laughing,
light
Kevin.
here? Shine the light here. And he goes, well, I need for you to tell me where you want me to put the light. So I said, right
Oh,
here. And what I realized was that my what the experience that I had growing up of my father, that we had to anticipate, pay
Mhm.
attention, look at it from his angle, and be prepared to, oh, does that require a flathead or a Phillips head screwdriver? To
Mhm.
anticipate that helped me become skilled or more skilled if I'm assisting someone that Kevin didn't have that experience.
Mhm.
And so that became actually a gift from that experience, which was stressful as a kid, not knowing. I learned, I learned the difference
Mhm.
between those tools. And so what was not necessarily fun, it became a gift. And so that skill being developed, anticipating other people, paying attention to what they're doing, it gave me a knack that I wouldn't
Yeah.
have had otherwise.
And the funny thing is, I think that many of us in the roles that we play, we are individuals that seem to have our eyes on the big picture, so we can. I think many of us might have developed that because if I was, for example, if I was serving under you in your community and you were on stage and you suddenly had to get off the stage for some reason, I know that I'd be saying, "Huh," and I would be ready to slip right in, which is fantastic. But it is a skill, and I don't know why I shared that because it has nothing to do with the shadow.
Well, no, but it is, but it does some though, because of your past experiences, how have supported you in bringing forth your gifts and talents in only the way that you can. And so it all serves us in being present in this moment. So it's just underscoring those dark
Mhm.
hallways, the shadows of our life have gifts in them that allow us to show up in our life as only we can.
Yeah.
And so it's just leaning into them and embracing them.
And I do think the world at large, I really believe this, because I've seen evidence of it. I've heard evidence of it. Now, not everyone, everywhere, all the time, but I've seen evidence of the. I feel like the world is beginning to heal its individual
Mm,
and some of the collective shadow, and I think that because of more articles, more conversations, more podcasts, more social media posts, and some of the conversations that I hear just in the world. I'm always eavesdropping. I'm a people watcher and I eavesdrop all the time. So I'm always fascinated by things that come out of people's mouths. And there is more evidence. There's still evidence of a lot of pain that's still there. There's no doubt that people are still in pain and still hidden behind some amount of shame. But the fact is, there is also the evidence that we are beginning to embrace more of our full essence than we ever were. And I'm really very hopeful for that. Incredibly
mm.
hopeful for that.
Well, it's as we each do our own individual work. So just as the light and the shadow are independent and connected, like the yin and the yang symbol, the light and
Mhm.
the dark within the light, then it's the same way with us as individuals being part of a greater whole. And um, I know that there are some who, who act as if they are the sole determining factor in their life as to the path that they're on. But we're in this whole thing together.
Yep.
We're
Yep.
only as
Mhm.
strong as the weakest of us.
Hmm.
And so there's a this and, there is a this and so as we do our own individual work and create a world that works for us to the extent, at least I'm just saying this is my 2 cents on it, this is my take on it, but as I do my work, then I am I'm shining. As I'm letting my light shine, I'm inviting others to let their light shine. And the more of us that do that, collectively, we become a greater light.
Hmm.
The more lights that are shining, there's more light. And so I think as the more material as this gets talked about, as we become aware of other people's experiences and
Mhm.
try to understand others, realizing we're not in this alone,
We're not.
then
anything alone.
I know, but it is interesting when there are Don Miguel Ruiz says that's probably one of the biggest problems is we think that everybody thinks like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody thinks like I do. Everyone sees the world as I do.
I'm
And
with my husband now for I don't know how many years. We'll be married 6, 7 years, 7 years, maybe 8 years. I'm sorry, but I don't track all that stuff.
Neil, if you're
But
watching the show,
is,
I'm sorry.
we're just annoying our partners today. But it's taken me years because I brought my conditioning to this relationship that was second in my life. It was, I was married once before, and my first husband and I, we had a rhythm, and that rhythm got created out of having children together and by doing that. And so it's a little more difficult when you don't have family or children together and you find other reasons. But it's taken me years, literally, to understand him and to listen between the lines and to even understand his silence. It took me years to realize that because he's not saying something out loud doesn't mean he's not talking about it or thinking about it. And so I'll finally ask him, he goes, yeah, I've been thinking about that for weeks. I'm like, oh. But my ex-husband and I, everything that was in our heads came out of our mouths. So I've had to relearn. And now there's more of a comfort because in silence, I make up stories, and the silent in my story with silence used to mean that, you were unhappy with me or I did something wrong. So now I've learned to translate it as it's just silence. The man thinks a lot. Right? So learn embracing the shadow and healing it also it clears up the filter that we see people through. Right. Because you can only see people through your own filter. So if your filter is filled with pain and suffering and stories, you don't really see the other person. You get glimmers of them. But when you do this healing and you integrate the aspects of yourself and you learn to love you deeply, profoundly, crazy, love yourself, then what happens, that filter opens up and now, I can see Alan. I can see you because I'm not hiding or stuck behind my own shadow. There are so many reasons to do this work. For everyone listening, there are so many reasons, so many benefits to doing this work. I really hope you all find a resource, a course, a book, and there's many out there. I really hope that you do this because even just in relationships, how brilliant your relationships become, right? Because then you also don't have to project your upset onto someone when you understand the source of it. You stop doing some of that projecting, the denial and projecting, So more joy, more happiness, more peace. I see you thinking.
I am thinking.
The gears are turning.
Yeah, I don't know if it's relevant to this conversation. It is, and I don't want to go too far out there, too meta. I don't want to go out so far, but there is a, in the thinking about in terms of society, and if there's only there's one of us here, one collective whole, then for me to not be informed. These shadows are operating at some deeper level. The societal shadows of which I'm a part, and without me investigating them individually and becoming aware of how I'm impacted by these shadows, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to project them onto others and outside there. And so why I bring this up is because there are some who spiritual bypass that I don't need to talk about or talk about what's going on in the world or be informed of what's going on in the world, because somehow I'm giving energy to it by educating myself about it. when I'm actually becoming more informed, so that then I can clear up any lenses, clear up my own lenses on how I'm looking out at the world. I'm not projecting that stuff. I'm thinking of, there was a recent conversation amongst, I was part of, and what do we do? Is our work in consciousness, is it just, it's all light, it's all light, and I'm to know only the light, and to me it's this, and it's important for us to be aware of the shadows, and the more that we know about our own, then we can know the behavior when we're projecting it, when we're blaming others. We understand the journey and how we got here.
Well, I think too that this state of our country is a call for us to do our work. Because most of the examples we've been using have been very personal, on a personal level, how we impact our own family, maybe our spiritual community, our friends. But the fact remains that the sooner we can learn to appreciate another, have compassion for another, and cease judging the other as separate from us, as a shadow, the sooner we'll see some amount of collaboration within this country, because the divisiveness right now is pretty palpable. It's pretty palpable, and it's a call for us to do more, for each of us. We have to do our part. We have to participate in the societal healing of this country. And one of my friends, one of our colleagues, she recently mentioned about wanting to pay more attention to the Native Americans in this country. Now, I'm fortunate because I have a gentleman in my community who's half Native American, so he keeps me paying attention. But the atrocities, the atrocities that we have perpetrated upon the people of this land when we arrived, but we've never healed it. We've never really publicly gone out there and said, oh my God, we did wrong. And so that causes a shadow, which then causes people to want to not talk about history, that wants to whitewash the way we present history in our schools, and it causes a collective shame.
Yeah.
And then
further separation, right? And further separation.
Yes, absolutely.
A wound that is not tended to can become infected.
Yeah.
It needs to be cleaned. It needs to be to be taken care of. And so just as those parts that we have been avoiding, some of what we're feeling is a result of the impact and influence of what's going on in society and the world. And so the invitation is for us to bring our light to it, not to turn away, and that's Cultivating Compassion course that I recently took with the Compassion Institute. We practice Tonglen. Tonglen is a Tibetan Buddhist practice of where you are intentionally breathing in or taking in intentionally the suffering of another or others, and then with the exhale, releasing compassion and well wishes, loving kindness. We're extending our intention for good, light and love, if you will. And the first guided meditation that I did from this class, and I've done Tonglen before, but never, I guess, at the understanding or where I'm at in my life right now, that there was a visceral reaction physically when in this guided meditation, they invited me to breathe in this mist that covered the other that I was sitting with, that in my imagination. I mean, it was where it said, it's poison, don't take it in. And I had to wrestle with. I really did. I had to wrestle with it, and it made me become aware of how much of my. I like to think of myself as a heart person, and I realized that some of my compassion or my kindness is mental.
Mhm.
It's in my head. And so
Yep.
it was as a, and then I was like, if I saw someone suffering, if a friend, or even if it was a so-called enemy, someone who I would disagreed with, maybe even hated. And I can't, there's no one in my life that I hate. I'm thinking, well, I'll have to think about that,
You're
so
not
I'll
watching,
put an
you're only
asterisk.
listening.
Let's put an
Yeah,
asterisk on it. Maybe
about that.
maybe I'm repressing that, but if I came upon them and they had just gotten bitten by a snake, a poisonous snake, and they
Yeah,
needed for me to help them, while
you
I
would.
could disagree with them, I even have strong feelings about their viewpoints, but they are a human being like I am, and I would be there to help, and I would take that poison and I would suck it out and spit it out. And you know, I
We
think
are
we need more of that.
wired.
I think we need more of that. I
We
think,
are
I
wired
need
to
to.
love on each other. We are wired, and we don't think we are.
Mhm.
And the fact is, I teach tongue meditation in my forgiveness course, and I use it as a recommendation for healing. And someone will always say, "But why am I breathing in the pain and suffering of others? What isn't it going to stick in me?" And so the thing I want to say, because I do strongly recommend that you look it up. It's a beautiful practice. It's not unlike the shamanic breath and other breathing practices, and it's spelled Tongle
Yeah, go ahead.
Tonglen, right? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Tonglen meditation. So here's the kicker. Here's what I want you to know, that because when you breathe that in, when Alan was asked to breathe in that mist that he had to stop and think about, the assumption is that you are connected to the whole, and that the whole is empowering you, and you can put whatever noun on that in place of whole, whether it's God or spirit or love, that you are the carrier of this, and that you are already embodied in this beautiful essence of safety and love. And that's why when you breathe it in, you now become a source of good.
Mm.
It's not just that you breathe it in, it gets stuck inside of you. That because you're doing the work all along, so that I can recognize another that is in pain, but I also recognize that I'm one with that other. They look like another,
Right.
but they're me. We are each other. And
I mean,
so,
the truth is you're already taking it in.
yeah,
You're
well,
already taking it in
that's
by
true.
even the awareness of another
Yep.
one suffering.
Mhm.
Then I have identified suffering in the life or in the lives of the other or the others. And so for to do this work, bringing light
Mm,
intentionally to what I might identify as suffering or separation, or to the one that I'm separated from, then I am it allows me to move out and to be an agent
mhm.
of change in my life, their life, the one I'm. How it felt to me after I did the meditation. It felt to me like a superpower of mine, that I have the ability, because I already do this. If I'm driving
Right.
past an automobile collision, or there's a situation, I just sort of hold my hand. It's become just a reflex, and just a knowing within myself that right there, what I'm observing is the activity of spirit as unfolding and harmonizing that situation. Spirit is present right there. And
Mhm.
with my consciousness, I am knowing that and opening that and holding that space for right action, for the highest good.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I already use this, but to sit and contemplate what the suffering is. And so some of the work around anti-racism, All right, all of the patriarchy, all of these things, and we could go down some rabbit holes, but only if we are not aware that our role is to move into the life that we're here to express, to bring the light that who we are to these shadows, and not to hide away from it. They remain shadows.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
They remain
You know,
shadows.
and so you might be, I don't know if you've ever been in this experience, but I can remember one time flying home from Florida, and we got stuck in there was a storm, so I I got sent to or I had the opportunity to stay in a hotel because I had my young son with me at the time, and but I tend to be quiet. I'm not usually the greasy, the greasy wheel. I'm not usually that person, but I watched as people were angry and yelling at the staff at the airport. So even if you're witnessing something that feels unfair and it has nothing to do with you, in that moment you get to become part of the change,
Mm,
because if you can be there and be present to it without having to join, like collaborate or collude with the upset, and instead just recognize that there's something about this person that's in pain, and maybe they just need to be seen. I don't know what that is in any moment, but right there, that's another way of embracing the power that you have, that's within the shadow that
mm.
you, and you could be part of the change and transformation just by not partying with the upset. It's just that alone. It's part of, like, do no harm. Just do
Right.
no harm. What
And
you know.
for us
I-
to I mean, myself, if I turn a blind eye, I mean, I've noticed, if I or try to, or make a judgment about it, or make someone wrong, or blame, shame, whatever it is, then it doesn't feel good to me.
Mm,
It doesn't feel good inside of me. I feel cut off. I feel constricted, restricted, and um, so it takes practice. It does take practice and a willingness to to be the change, to be that light, to bring it forward, and you know, gosh, that one is who I might be judging is they're human just like me.
yep. Yep. Absolutely.
They're just trying to get their needs met, and I may be judging them as unskilled, and they may judge me as unskilled, as our means and methods and worldview and how to get there. But underneath it all of us just, you know, want to be happy, and we want the light to shine. We want to belong, to be seen, and so we can do that in our own individual lives, and I think that's what we here as we're wrapping up, Michelle, is that we can do this even on in a larger level just by bringing awareness to it. Some of
Yeah.
us are more active and demonstrate this in even bigger ways, hands-on. Uh, I know you do a lot of work with healing the divide and the racial divide, and um, but even just getting involved in your local community. Where can you bring the light?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where can you bring the light? You were born for this, and if you have an idea for it, if you have an idea or an impulse, lean into it. Maybe you're the light that shadow has been waiting to.
Yeah, you might be the only person who's willing to take a risk and say something differently that's in the room. And so honor the urge. Honor the urge to bring something different into the conversation, for sure. Yeah.
Mm,
So it's been a powerful month. It's been a powerful month. I'm not going to do it here, but even I've mentioned a couple times about a book study that I'm in, and and I can't again recommend the book enough, which is the myth of normal. The myth of normal, right? Yeah.
you
Yeah.
haven't mentioned this.
I haven't. Oh, this is Gabor
Oh,
Mate.
Gabor Mate.
Yeah, British, Canadian doctor from Austria originally. I forget. Oh my God, I should know. He talks about the story of his. I forget where he's from right now. I apologize. The man is influencing thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, bringing together the lies that the medical world, not because they were trying to tell lies, but they have been duped into believing, and how it really ties into our humanity. And so the book study has been so brilliant. I've been able to be incredibly authentic. And last week it left me raw and realizing another aspect of my shadow. So the work never stops. To those of you listening, it doesn't stop. It's not always hard. I don't want you to think of it as always hard, but it's always worth the next look. It's always worth the next, to peer under the veil of separation and to see, because you will always be happy with what you find on the other side. I promise you that. I promise you that.
And it allows, and as the more that we look, then the image just came to my mind as far as, this lights, camera, action, moving out in the center stage of our life, that limelight, that light is larger and larger. It may have only be that something we're called to, a life that we're called to live, and it may just look like a little point on the stage, but as we step into it, it will grow and expand, and there might be some raw points. There might be some effort it takes to getting there to our mark on the stage.
Yep.
But we were born for this.
Yes. Yeah. So before we leave here today, Reverend Alan again, or Alan, I keep calling you that. Want to tell everyone once again where you're from, and we can put
so we'll just put I'm at Concordia Center for Spiritual Living. If you want to find me on Facebook, you can find me at Rev Alan Vukas, or at Concordia CSL. You can find Concordia CSL anywhere. We stream live each Sunday, as we've been talking about these themes throughout the year. And also, if you follow me at newthoughtnewlife.com, that is where I'm working on some stuff, and I'm going to be rolling out I do some writing there occasionally. And so you're happy to follow me there. And how about you, Michelle? If somebody wants to follow you, and sorry.
I'm pretty much Rev. Are we dueling?
Yes, we are. We're clicking and unclicking what each other's doing. We're trying to help each other. We're trying to help each other.
You can find me at the Planned Happiness Institute, and that's where I do where we do the shadow work and the forgiveness work, and I too have a weekly blog and other courses and such. And a course that we're about to teach is through my CSL, through my CSL connection, CSLNJ.org is, we're about to start some new classes, and you find me as Rev Jersey Girl almost everywhere. So just, look for Rev Jersey Girl, and I will be there. And I'm so glad for this conversation.
Thank you. Subscribe to our show at LivingOutLoud.show.
Yes, please.
We'll send out the show notes these days.
Yeah, and sign up, subscribe, and if any part of this is valuable, any part of it, share the link with people so we can grow the audience, because this conversation is a valuable conversation. And the beautiful thing is that on the website you can see all the past issues, correct? All the past episodes, I meant to say. So you can see all the past episodes and come with us as we have traveled, this year so far of vulnerability and authenticity and the shadow. And now next month, I can't believe I'm excited about this, but I'm excited about going on to self-care, because it means something to me now that it never meant before in my life. So I'm really excited. And I love that we're doing this together. We hear you. We are a community now. If you're listening to us, you're part of our community. And so we're very happy that you're here. And we are truly, truly here to serve. Truly here to serve. You can reach out to either one of us through the website, through the Facebook page, and we will respond. We will.
Yes. And so
you want to pray us out today?
Yeah, and so thank you everyone for joining us today. And as we just wrap it up here, wrap up this month of the light within the shadows, just join me in knowing this as we turn within to that light. The light is here. The light has come, and it has come and is showing up here in the world, shining brightly in and through, and as each one here now. And not just the ones here watching, listening, but the one that is showing up as all life, as all living beings. And so from this greater space and awareness, I just declare and know right now that each one is blessed and is on their right and perfect journey. That the light that is within is lighting the way, enlightening each one, guiding, directing, and protecting into a good and greater good. I accept for myself and for all who accept this word. I just know right here, right now, that life is harmonizing, spirit is harmonizing all the affairs of my life into good and greater good. Oh, I just accept this, knowing that it is moving and directing each one onto the center stage of their own life. Each one has been born for this now moment. And so I'm grateful to know that the law is making it so. And so I just allow this to be with a grateful heart and with great expectancy. And join me in knowing this to be true by saying, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you all.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah,
Fun as usual and always very stimulating to growth. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you next week as we talk about self-care.
See
Peace
you
and love
then.
all. Bye-bye.
Bye.